Non-stop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Dude, the Rhino might be back, bro.
Football.
Right, welcome to Trenches with Boone here, where Alex Boone and myself, Phil Mackey, have combined in our lives for over 10 years of NFL experience. We have combined to start a Super Bowl, and we have combined to make a lot of money playing football. That's right. It's the Mackey and Boone connection here every single week.
I love
Just two illustrious football playing careers here.
Just two guys.
Couple of guys who quit football in 8th grade because there's too much running involved and played baseball instead.
Dude, what a disappointment. Baseball. God.
You know, baseball's great. You can just kind of stand out in the outfield, wait for a fly ball twice in 2.5 hours.
Dude, it's so hard to watch sometimes. But hey, you know what I was thinking about when you're talking about that football thing? You know what always drove me nuts? I never got to be a Gruden grinder. Seriously. You can't tell me because you had no stats as an O-line, so you were never going to do anything. So you're always like, man, I just want to be the grinder for a week. Just 1 week. Never.
So did you ever have games where you thought coming off the field, awesome, we won the game, but your second thought was
Socho?
I think I did enough to be a Gruden grinder this week.
Like, there was a couple Monday night games. I think we rushed really, really well. And we were in the locker room like, dude, I think we're going to win it as a group. And I think our fullback won it. And I was like, because he was on special teams. And I was like, dude, seriously. I think we played Washington that week. Just so upset.
See, I think now I feel like your whole goal in 2022 is to avoid being on Come On Man. Like I was watching tonight before Monday Night Football, and Thomas Morstad punted a ball into a guy's ass in the end zone for a safety.
So bad. You
had Jimmy Garoppolo running out of the back of the end zone. By the way, I covered as a Vikings beat writer back in 2008. I was at the game where Dan Orlovsky ran through the. And Dan Orlovsky was like 5 yards out of bounds, just looking down the field. And Jared Allen's got his arm in the air, like, what is this?
What's he doing? What's he doing? What are you doing? No, the best was like this morning when I saw that Orlovsky had tweeted, like, thank God finally somebody else has done it. And I was like, God, that had to be sitting on him forever, because I feel like that meme comes back once every 6 months. Everybody just laughs about it. And now poor Jimmy, he's gonna have to get it.
In fact, we had two of the most hilarious, rare, impossible plays in NFL history. We had the Dan Orlovsky running out of the back of the end zone, and we had, back in the day, we had the Mark Sanchez butt fumble.
Oh, that's
we basically brought those plays back with the butt punt and then the Jimmy Garoppolo. And Dan Orlovsky, he's I'm assuming a highly paid analyst now on ESPN. He had like a 12-year backup career, and so he's done some good stuff making a living out of football, but that's the one thing above all else that people will probably always remember him for.
Dude, Jared pointing at him was the best. That was so funny. What's he doing?
Is this idiot?
You're an idiot.
He should have just kept running into the locker room, quite frankly. So I'm going to give you my big picture take on this Vikings game, and then you can tell me if I am right, wrong, or somewhere in between, or an idiot, or whatever you want to do with my analysis. Later on, we will fire people, and I will ask a dumb question about football, and you will give a detailed answer to it.
I love it.
So I think, especially now that most teams don't play their key starters in the preseason, I think what happens sometimes in the NFL is we have like the perfect idea of what a football game should look like. Like if you're a Vikings fan and you're rooting for your team on Sunday, you're rooting for the offense, you're rooting for the defense, and in your mind, if the defense gives up more than like 13 points and doesn't get heavy pressure on the quarterback for 3 hours, or if the offense isn't clicking on all cylinders for 3 hours, 31 points, whatever, then it's kind of a disappointment one way or the other. But in 17 games, you're only going to play the perfect game like once or twice, maybe. Most games are in this muddy middle ground. Even the best teams in the league are kind of, he might be trailing by 10 points in the second quarter. Okay, Patrick Mahomes got to roll up the sleeves and put the big boy khakis on here. And that kind of happened to the Vikings on Sunday. And by the way, the Lions are not a pushover team anymore, and we can talk about that too. But it was one of those games where, all right, you fall behind early because the Lions are playing their ass off for Dan Campbell, and then you come back, you fall behind again, and it just kind of happens. And Kirk Cousins kind of struggled throughout the day, but in the end, you come back from down double digits for only the third time in Kirk Cousins' Vikings tenure, and you won a game during a month in which you're installing a new offensive system and a new defensive system. And so there's a lot of things to nitpick, but my overall takeaway is if you would have told me Vikings are going to start 2-1, 2-0 in the division, they're going to have a fourth quarter comeback in there, and still have a bunch of things to work on, I think they're pretty much exactly where they should be after 3 games.
Yeah. I agree with you. And I think you're right. I think a lot of this has to do with preseason. There's a lot of timing, a lot of issues going on up front, and it's a whole new offense, like you said. But I think the one thing that's so cool about it is last week we talked about how everybody said they got their ass beat. I didn't agree with that. I'm sorry. I didn't. And then how are they going to respond? You come out, you get punched in the mouth, you're down 14-0. And then you fight back. Like, there's so much more to look at. Like, yeah, the O-line needs to play better. Yeah, they need to try and find Dalvin the ball more when he's healthy. And now that he's got this shoulder injury, it's kind of like, oh, man, how is this going to mess with the offense? Because I felt like that was such a big lift for them, being able to give it to Dalvin. Like, he just fell forward for 7 yards every time. He made it look so easy. And it was like, this is their system. And it's going to sound stupid, but I know that we all kind of not like Zim. But I do see what he was trying to implement now that, like, you have this big flashy offense and you're like, man, the one thing that's still hitting is the run game. And yeah, it's cool because it's done different ways. Like at one point in the game, I think it was in the third quarter, and don't mark my words, but I think there was like 5:45 on the clock. They ran a gun read, and a gun read is normally when like a quarterback's going to keep it, like a quarterback gun read. You know what I'm saying, right?
So this is like hold on a second. So quarterback in shotgun, and it's like a read option?
Correct. Quarterback gun read. And so like they ran it. And it was kind of like, to me, like, why would they do that? Kirk's not really a running quarterback. But then all of a sudden it started hitting me like this is kind of like the nuances of what Kevin's bringing to this offense. Like, yeah, Kirk's not going to keep it, but what if Kirk were to keep it and throw it? You know what I'm saying? Like, there could be so many plays off of it that all of a sudden you see these like little plays that show up. Like there was another one, and they motioned Irv to the left, and I think it was in the second quarter, and they ran a swing screen to the right, and they had 3 fades go, and then they ran a tight end screen to the left, and I think it went for like 10 yards. It should have went for a touchdown, but it didn't. But you start to see these plays show up, and you're like, okay, these are what's cool. This is what's fun about it. Like, it keeps their defense on the toes. But at the end of the day, this team is a run-first team. They have to run the ball. And when they do, good things happen. And yeah, Dalvin was under 100. He still had a touchdown. But it's what it does to the defense and these linebackers. Like, at times you see Anzalone, like, in the backfield on a play action. Then he turns and freaks out and sprints to his zone. And it's like, this is what's so healthy about this offense. This is where you help the offensive line. The play action pass blocking is so much better than when you empty them out and go gun and you let all these guys stand up there, and it's like all of a sudden they're kind of picking this offense this defense that, remember the Ravens did last year? Like, they bring a lot of guys up there, and then all of a sudden they're kind of like, who's coming, who's not coming. I mean, they start getting into those situations, and it's kind of like Kirk gets a little spastic. The ball was a little bit all over. I'm not going to lie. And he took some hits. He did take some hits. And a lot of those were when he was in gun and they were twisting. They were bringing guys up the middle. Like, when you do that to a defense, you let them kind of, and we've talked about this, it can work one of 2 ways. Like, you can force their hand, but when they're a really good, tough defense and they know how to play you, they're still going to bring everybody up. And at times they're going to drop everybody. They're going to bring everybody. But when you do this out of the play action game, and they do so well because these linebackers they sink in here because they're so afraid of Dalvin. It's just incredible to see that.
So if Dalvin, because Dalvin now has he off and on throughout his career, he's had this like shoulder dislocation problem.
Which I'm sure pops out easily now. I mean, at some point you have to think that joint has got to be just beat up.
Yeah, because he runs into the back of Ezra Cleveland, and shoulder like pops out, ball pops out of his arms, and he's out. He's got a hooded sweatshirt on out for the rest of the game. Yeah. But then he tells the coaching staff after the game, "Oh, I'm good to go next week. This just kind of happens once in a while. They're not going to put me back in with a dislocated shoulder, so I'll just kind of rest it for a few days." But I guess my question to you is, if he misses time, is it more about him and defenses fearing him, or is it the run game in general and the schematics of it? Is he that dangerous of a player, or is it more about the run game in its entirety, whether Alex Madison's in there or not?
Yeah, there was a time in the game. Did you see that one time where he took the edge? I think it was It wasn't the touchdown. It was one before that, and he was running an outside zone, and it looked like his old self again. He caught the edge, he made that one plant, and he just got north, and he just looked like he had that explosion again. And when he was watching those zones, he's got this amazing feel to cut right back into the lane, and then he just puts his head down and he's just carrying dudes with him. Like, he is such a force to be reckoned with that I think nowadays teams make you earn it. Like they're like, okay, listen, we get your nickel, Dalvin's back there. We're going to let you run him a little bit. We're going to see what you're about. But then we're going to have to throw in some big boys. So you got to prove it to us before we do it. I think Alexander Mattison could be don't get me wrong, he's a good running back, but I don't think he has that Dalvin-esque where all of a sudden if I put my head down, I become a really dangerous player. Like, I can get the corner at the same time I can body somebody. That's what makes him so amazing.
Why do you think let's move over to the passing game for a second here, because I watch that game and think, okay, Justin Jefferson, and there were some plays where, by the way, there's all 22 footage of him being double and triple teamed at times, and there was in fact, there's a great screen grab. I think it's Alec Lewis is the new Vikings beat writer for The Athletic, and it's the all 22 of the second to last play of the game. So KJ Osborne had the 2 receptions, the first one to set up, and then the game winner, and the Lions. So I'm going to try to explain this. Justin Jefferson was lined up on he was wide left side line of scrimmage, and KJ Osborne is out to the right, and they're running sort of they're going to cross each other like 15 yards midfield. Right. And you see one defender trailing KJ Osborne. You see 2 defenders trailing Justin Jefferson, including one of them which is getting handsy 15 yards out. And then a safety over the top, shoulders turned to pick up Justin Jefferson. So they literally had 3 players defending Justin Jefferson on that one play. And Kevin O'Connell came out and said, even though he only caught a couple passes, his presence was able to open up some other things. But like Cooper Kupp in that Rams offense a year ago, his worst game was like 6 catches for 75 or 8. He never had a game where he was just eliminated for 3 hours. Yeah. And I guess my question to you is, should it be that easy? It's great that he was a decoy, great that he accounted for 3 defenders and opened things up. That's awesome. But should it be that easy to just say, all right, well, we're going to take this guy out of the game defensively? I feel like even if they say that, you should still be able to get some explosive plays with him. And I'm wondering why not.
It's tough. The way that they played him, they jammed him right at the line of the scrimmage. I mean, they had him the whole day. They knew where he was. I think if they went into that game, the one mindset they had was, we can't let JJ do the gritty on us. Like, no matter what we do, we can let anybody else beat us.
If Ben Ellefson does the gritty, that's fine.
Who cares, right?
If Johnny Munt does the gritty, it's fine, but not this guy.
You're good. No, because everyone's going to be like, what are you guys, stupid? You didn't realize he was over there. But I think what's important to understand is, as much as they covered him up, what scared me the most was, number one, how handsy that defense was. And there weren't a lot of calls, like that one with Thielen where he went crazy.
Yeah.
I don't agree with going crazy like that. Like, obviously you're never going to get a call if you go crazy. Like, they're never like, oh, you know what? He's getting crazy.
Oh, he's got a point. Or he might murder us. Oh, God.
No.
He's got a knife.
Right? Like, but at the same time, they were just grabby, super. I mean, they were all over the guys. There was no question about it. And I think that the minute that Kirk found Thielen and he saw that flag come out, he was like, I think I found my mismatch for the day. And all of a sudden, the flags just started flying out. KJ Osborne's getting flags, and all of a sudden, KJ Osborne's open. Like, it was just kind of it could have been done earlier, I think, but some of the balls were just, there was a couple throwaways that I was like, what's he thinking? It's 3rd and 5. He just threw it to the sideline. Like, what's going on? Like, it just was a little uncharacteristic, but he brought it back around in the end. I thought he played tough. Yeah,
because at the end of the day, Kirk Cousins is God mode against the Lions at noon.
Dude.
Kirk Cousins, if you took he has now played 9 noon games against the Lions since joining the Vikings. And if you took his numbers in those games and extrapolated them to 17 games, so take his average and extrapolate them, 75% completions, 37 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and a 120 passer rating with multiple fourth quarter comebacks.
Dude.
The Lions at noon are Kirk Cousins' Super Bowl. And even though he started slow, he knew what he had to do in the final moments of that game.
I mean, you got to give him credit. He took a lot of hits. There was a lot of balls that were kind of like, where's he throwing that? But in the end, he brought it back around. He found KJ. And that's the one thing that you got to see sooner. Like the Lions, we're not going to say that they're Super Bowl contenders at all. Okay, I'm just going to say they're a really good team. They're tough. And if they smack you in the mouth, they're even tougher to come back from. But at the same time, the minute that Kirk started realizing that there was other people out on the field, like Thielen, that he could create these mismatches with, and KJ Osborne, like at times he looked a little panicked, and then all of a sudden he was like, oh, this is what we're doing. Here's the game plan. And two, like Dalvin was taking over a little bit of the game. He was having a little bit of fun. The play action started showing up. But I think when it came to the receiving game, like the true pass game, they have to find that sooner, because there's going to be better teams that they play this year that if you go down 24-14 or you're down 14-0, you're not coming back, because they're just going to continue to grind that football.
Yeah. I know how much you love Pro Football Focus, and you swear by them as an evaluator. You basically, everything you know is from Pro Football Focus. That's what you told me anyways. Mm-hmm. They have, of all the tackles, the offensive tackles that have played at least 20% of snaps, they've got Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill both in the top 14 among all right and left tackles this year through the first 3 games.
Yeah,
the Vikings might, and those dudes are in their mid-20s, early to mid-20s. They might have found we know about Brian O'Neill, like he's under contract and stuff, but like they may have found a couple long-term offensive tackles here.
Yeah, and remember last week we were talking about Ezra was out there blowing people up, and I sent you that clip. You're probably like, there's no way that's believable. And then you send it to you, you're like, all right, maybe it is. But, I mean, you talk about what it is to have tackles in this league nowadays, and the defensive ends that they're just mauling people, and all these tackles that are going down. I mean, dude, this is going to hamper so many teams right now with these injuries, that if you can have 2 solid tackles that are young, dude, it's the world is yours. I mean, I think the biggest problem we're seeing, though, is now, like this last week, they were kind of tested a little bit, right? You throw the ball 46 times, people are going to start to do some things against you, start to twist some things, start to move you around. For the most part, I thought everyone did good. I thought the rookie was challenged a little bit, but everybody's going to challenge you as a rookie. Everyone's out there to see what you're about. They can't let you get beat by you. And I think everyone's going to give you their best. But, I thought he played well. As an offensive line, they played well. I mean, that's a tough defense, man. They come out swinging, and they're playing off their offense. And it's pretty much like the same game plan. Like the Lions wanted to run the ball and play action off of it. And at times they become super crazy in what they're doing, because you're like, it's 4th and 8. Are they really going for it? Like, there's no way. At one point I was like, this is a joke. There's no way. And then he snapped it, and I was like, oh my God, they're for real. Like, that's what just makes them so dangerous. And I think as a defense, that's in the back of your mind, like, there's no way that they're going to go 4 wide on 4th and 8 with this team, right? And then all of a sudden they snap the ball, and everyone's like, oh my God, they really did. Like, what do we do? And it's just, that's what makes them so 1-2 crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, they get up on you, and then all of a sudden they're going for it on 4th down, and you're like, man, these guys will just do anything. You don't know what to expect.
You've actually stumbled onto the doorstep of my firing segment here. So we're going to get to it in a second, but I want to ask you about Bradbury. PFF has Bradbury as the 6th best center in the NFL through 3 weeks. He's almost always been rated as one of the 5 worst starting centers by PFF. So they see something in his game, both in pass protection and in the run game. Have you been able to glean anything just in watching some of these games here early on from Bradbury, or is it way too early to tell after 3 games?
No, I think he's played better so far. I mean, I know against the Packers, there was a couple times Kenny Clark showed up, and it was like, okay, it's Kenny Clark. He's a good player. But Philly week, I don't remember him showing up that much. And then this week, there's just a couple things. I mean, they bring 8 guys up. Things start getting crazy. You know what I'm saying? But for the most part, they play tough. You throw the ball, like I said, 46 times. You're going to expect your quarterback to get hit a little bit. They're going to eventually out scheme you, outthink you. And at one point, I'm watching the Vikings are trying to cross key things, and that's when you're deep reaching in the bag. Like, listen, we got to start messing with them. We line our running back up on the left, and he goes back to the right to block, and now all of a sudden the defense doesn't know what's going on. I mean, it became a scheme game quickly, but for the most part, I'd say Bradbury this last game wasn't too bad.
Yeah. All right. Let's fire someone here real quick.
Okay. You always just want to fire someone.
You've stumbled into it. Well, we fired 2 people on Mackey and Judd today, including Lee Corso from College Game Day. Do you ever watch that ESPN? Do you watch college football much?
You know what I do now? I do.
Well, yeah, you're working with all these college kids now. You better flip on a match.
I can't watch the game. I can't watch all that crap. It's too much.
Lee Corso is 87 years old, and he's been on that set for decades. And it's just not working anymore. Yeah, dude.
It's been a while.
It's not working anymore. I think they
might
say
something. Did he do something?
Well, he's not with it anymore. And I don't want to disrespect the guy, but I think maybe just a pre-recorded segment with Lee that you can kind of, he did drop a random F-bomb like 2 years ago. He just got excited. He's like 85 and just dropped an F-bomb on live TV. But all right, here's why I'm going with this one. So every week I fire someone on the show. Your firing is optional if you'd like to fire someone as well. And you bring up the aggressiveness by the Lions on fourth down. I mean, the first 3 quarters of that game, I think they went for it 4 or 5 times, and they successfully.
4. Yeah.
They hit 4 in a row. And then they get to a minute 10, minute 14 left. And so the Lions are driving. Minute 14 left. Vikings are out of timeouts. Lions are up by 3 at this point. And they're at the Vikings' 36-yard line. So they are in field goal range, but both kickers were kind of struggling.
Yeah, rough days.
Some people said it was windy in Minneapolis, and they had those big-ass doors open at the end of the stadium. And that,
That's what they were talking about. Yeah. I think the wind in the doors is really playing a factor today, Tim. Great call, Carl.
Can you just go stand over there and see for us, please? So they've got 3 decisions here on fourth down. They could kick a field goal, which is what they wound up doing and missing it. Now the Vikings have the ball at the 44-yard line. They could punt and maybe pin the Vikings inside the 10. Again, no timeouts. Driving for a touchdown at that point seems highly unlikely. Even getting to field goal range would be tough at that point. You got to pick up a bunch of yards. Or you could go for it like you have 4 times already on, it's 4th and 4.
Yeah.
And you're averaging like 5 or 6 yards a play on the day, so you can make it happen. And I always say football is very complicated, but sometimes you can simplify it by asking yourself, if we stopped everything right now and asked the defense, hey, guys, what don't you want us to do right now? I think the defense, huffing and puffing after a day's work, would have said, you know what? Would really rather you not go for it here on 4th and 4. If we have our option, a punt would be fine, but kicking a 54-yard field goal, which, by the way, only puts you up by 6. It doesn't, ice the game or anything. And they chose field goal. And so Dan Campbell, I know those guys are going to run through a brick wall for you, and that's great, and you rolled the dice in the first half. But if you're going to stare blankly at the field and short-circuit in those big moments of football crisis and make sabotaging decisions inside 2 minutes, you're not going to win a lot of games. So, Dan, I'm sorry, guy. Pack your bags, man. Pack your gym bags. Pack your Smedium t-shirts. You're out of here.
That was bad. Yeah, it was. I don't know. I guess I didn't really get that either. The guy missed one earlier, and it was like, he didn't look like he was confident. But then again, but the fourth down before that was the one where they tried to do the scissors play. Did you see that? Like, they'd been running zone the whole day, and then they ran the scissors where he jabs left and comes back right. And, of course, Daniil just destroys the tight end. He's just waiting there. But you know what I love about this the best is Pat P celebrated the hardest. I was like, Daniil tackled the tight end and the running back, and there's Pat P going crazy. I'm like, dude, you didn't even do anything. You literally tackled Daniil. Got up and went crazy, and everyone was like, Pat P for the tackle. I was like, dude, didn't you?
I'm so glad you brought that up. So my wife watched about 30 seconds of that game. That was the 30 seconds. She popped in, watched that play, and she goes, why is that dude celebrating? Why'd you gave up 24 points to these guys? You didn't do anything on that play, and then walks out of the room.
That's it. That's all wives see.
Calm down, guy.
What an idiot celebrating. You should have won.
Here, okay, I have another harebrained theory off this late game stuff, and I think Peyton Manning brought this up one time in some context. But I always feel like if you're going to give the ball back to an offense with like a minute or a minute and a half, so it's go time. It's 2-minute drill.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think a 3-point lead is safer than a 6-point lead or a 4 or a 5-point lead. Because if you have a 6-point lead and you give the ball back to the other team, they are no longer playing conservative for a field goal. They are all in, hair on fire, trying to score a touchdown. But if it's a 3-point lead, oftentimes teams will get conservative once they cross the 50-yard line offensively because, okay, all right, we're in field goal range. We don't want to blow this thing, so let's not go too crazy here. Let's make sure we get the field goal for sure, and if we get a touchdown, it's a bonus. What are your thoughts?
I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if I agree with that. I've never heard anyone just be like, hey, guys, we're going to play it really cool right now. Like, they're always like, listen, we're trying to get
but like the play calling would be more I don't want to call something that's going to risk an interception once we cross the 50-yard line.
I guess we disagree on that a little bit. Just because I think people are always out to prove how smart they are. So they're like, dude, let's throw this play or let's do this. Like when you're in a 2-minute drill in practice, they'll give you you're down by 2, you're down by 6, you have 2 timeouts. The quarterback's always coming in like, hey, we're here for the touchdown. I don't want the field goal wins the game, but we're going, if we can put it in, we're putting it in. Because that's how you know you're going to seal it up. Like, I've seen a lot of the crazy things happen where you're like, hey, listen, we got this in the bag. Let's just chill. Let's just play cool. You know what I'm saying? And things don't always go your way. And that's why I think that when you're out there, the minute you start to play cautious, you're going to lose. Somebody's going to go slow. Something bad's going to happen. Someone's going to think it's in the bag. That's why they always tell you foot on the gas always. You're always scoring a touchdown. Yeah, I get it. Sometimes when you get into that field goal range and maybe you're down by 2 and they're like, hey, listen, now we can really be conservative. But at times even when you're down by 3, they're like, nah, dude, we need this win for sure, especially because field goal kickers at times can get a little wonky.
That's what I loved about the game, too, is that Kevin O'Connell didn't, and maybe it was because Greg Joseph had missed a couple field goals, but he said, screw the field goal. Field goal doesn't guarantee it. The field goal just ties the game and they get the ball back. We go to overtime. Let's chunk one here to KJ Osborne. Let's chunk one down here and win the game right now.
I love it.
And not to keep bringing it back to the old regime in Zimmer, but like that wasn't always the feeling. It always felt like, let's keep the game. Let's not make any mistakes. Kevin O'Connell is okay with aggressive mistakes. And I think fans are going to have to be okay with it too. There's going to be times where, hey, dude, interception doesn't matter right now. So just be aggressive and make something happen.
Well, it's like it's like the old adage, dude. Anytime you're doing anything, something crazy is going to happen eventually. Like you're playing football, bad things are bound to happen. But when you're playing conservative football, you're almost guaranteed bad things are going to happen because eventually you're just going to shoot yourself in the foot. And it's kind of and I've said this and people think I'm crazy, but at times when you spread people out and you go crazy, it's super fun and you have to deal with the risk. Like BA used to be like, no risk it, no biscuit. But it's fun, dude. You're like, dude, this is actually you're throwing a deep ball 50 yards. You're like, dude, this is football right now. You're blocking people for a long time. You're seeing these Dino routes or a post route or like you said, 2 crossing routes and the ball's in the air. You're like, that's a pretty ball.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I have a dumb football question before we get to the official dumb football question. So I always feel like people the last couple of years have ripped into the Vikings defense they just haven't been great, but my comeback to that, not to defend a bad defense, is defense isn't played in a vacuum. I need context. So if you look last year, for instance, the 4 highest scoring first half offensive teams, so teams that jump out offensively in the first half, all 4 of those teams also had top 10 defenses. Mm-hmm. The Buffalo Bills, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Cowboys, and then I can't remember. I think the Chiefs might have been in that mix too.
I think it might have been the Rams, wasn't it?
Yeah, yep, you're right.
The Rams. The Chiefs, God, they were terrible.
The Chiefs defense came around for a little while,
but
you're right. The Rams were in the top 10.
Yep.
And I think it's so much easier if you take a 14 rip lead or you're up, whatever, up 21-17. Your defense can now eliminate a lot of different stuff from their playbook. You can, cliche, pin your ears back a little bit more.
Waiting for you to say it, yeah.
And if you look, like the Vikings jumped out to a lead against the Packers in the first week. Holy cow, look at this defense. Oh, they're flustering Aaron Rodgers. And well, yeah, because now the Packers are again, cliche, a one-dimensional.
Right.
In the next 2 games, Vikings fall behind. Now they're
throwing a lot.
Yep. And so I think my biggest problem with the Vikings offense the last few years is that they led the league in 3 and outs last year, putting the defense in a tough spot on a regular basis. And they rarely jumped out to big leads. In fact, the Vikings in the last 5 years have only scored 20 points in the first half 11 times, which is like way behind the leaders in those categories. They are 9-2 in those games when they score a bunch of points in the first half. So as an offensive lineman yourself, when you are, let's say you're losing in a game and you have to kind of abandon the run game, how much harder is it and how much easier is it for the defense to do what they need to do in those situations?
Oh, it's so easy because they know you're not going to run it, because if you run it, you're just wasting clock. I mean, it depends on the situation. If you're in a real situation, say like we were in a situation one time, we were down 21-0 at halftime and we came out and I remember we were running out and the coaches were like, everybody get ready for 2 minutes. I was like, It's 30 minutes left in the game. What are we doing? We got no time to waste because you got to think. You got to come back from those 3 touchdowns, hope that your defense comes out. And that's the other issue, too, is that when you're getting stopped, like I think the Vikings were, 2 for 9 on third down? When you're getting stopped that many times and you're putting your defense back out there, they're getting gassed and you're letting their offense gain momentum on you. And then all of a sudden they go in at halftime and they're like, hey, listen, now we really get to run a real 4-minute style. We can do anything we want back here and have some fun. Puts your defense in a bind and puts you at the same time. Because I remember in that game, we were playing the Giants in Candlestick. I remember every first down they got in the second half, it was just so hard to watch because now you're like, man, that's more time off the clock. It's more time off the clock. You're just watching draining down, and then you go out there, they're in nickel, big nickel. They're talking about the stunts they're going to do against you. They got 5 D linemen out there. You know what's coming. All of a sudden they're bringing like JPP in the A-gap, and we're like, is that legal? Are we squeezing down? What's going on? And I'm telling you, dude, it's like the most chaotic situation of your life. It's like your wife's yelling at you while your kids are crying and you're like, I don't have an answer, but the guy behind me does, and he's not talking to any of us right now. I don't know what to do. I physically don't know what to do right now. This
is also overwhelming. Oh my gosh.
I know, right?
I'm crying right now.
I remember every time I felt like that, like you just didn't have the answer and there were so many questions. I remember thinking to myself, like, you're in the middle of the National Football League right now and you sound like such an idiot. Like you just don't know what you're doing and nobody's answering you. You almost have to kind of laugh for a minute. Like, God, this is a really bad situation to be in. All right, here we go. Snap the ball. I guess we'll all just figure it out.
The Vikings are also terrible. As you mentioned, they're 2 of 9 on third down this week. They are 29% on third down this season after being only like 35% last year. I think, as the number one Kirk Cousins hater in town, I think sometimes when he likes things to be very planned. When things are planned and it's all set and neat, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Third down is very rarely all set and neat. It's pressure, it's muddy, it's improvisational. He doesn't have the benefit like half the quarterbacks in the league, like Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen or Russell Wilson on Sunday night, of using his legs. So I think part of it's Kirk, but I guess if you were plopped down and said, all right, this team sucks on third down, what can you do to be better on third down? Is it mostly on the quarterback to make plays?
Yeah, for sure it's on the quarterback to make plays. I was just trying to look at my there was a third down that they ran where it looked like it was a fence look, and then a bunch of guys up. They had like 8 guys up. The closest guy to the receivers were easily 10 yards off. I think it was like 3rd and 8. And it went back. It just brought me back to remember last year when it was like we saw the answer. Remember when I start drawing things up, like you should have just done this. And, you hope for the best at this point. He ended up like, I think that was the play he took the sack. But it's like the answer is right in front of you, dude. There's nobody within 10 yards, and you got everybody running these wild routes. And you're like, you know what? I'm doing this on the hope that at least one of these guys is dropping. But when they don't and you guess wrong, it just looks stupid at times. You know what I'm saying? I know that was the one I think he threw it out of bounds. But it's like, instead of letting this route sit there and try and develop, why don't you just call an audible? Why don't you just do something crazy like, hey, listen, everybody run a go. And then, hey, the guy in the end, you run a slant. We'll call this a follow because you're going to follow the 2 guys in front of you. Okay, we should keep it simple. But
is he allowed to do that, though?
I don't know. Oh. But you would think that a capable quarterback would just get up there and go, wow, look at all that grass. Now, I could guess wrong on this, and they could all drop. And if they do, then I got 3 other guys running routes. But somebody in here needs to run a hot route. Somebody in here needs to get open right now because I'm going to catch this ball, and I'm going to fire it somewhere. And if you're not there, it's your fault, not mine, right?
I remember the play. I do remember the play you're talking about, and it was
drives me nuts though. When
you should welcome blitzing and pressure in those situations too, right? Because now something's open,
right? You can't bring that. I mean, eventually people are going to have to they know that you're not good under pressure, so they're going to have to keep figuring out new ways to keep Justin Jefferson and Thielen at bay while they're bringing pressure. But at the same time, you should be challenging them as much as they're challenging you. Oh, you want to show me 8 up? Well, guess what? I'm going to throw some goofy hand signal out to these 3. Throw another one out to these 3 and make you guys think now what's going on, right? Like at some point you have to challenge the defense. And when you see all these guys, they just take off downfield and you're like, how come nobody's running a shallow cross? How come nobody's just waiting on the outlet? Like somebody should always be somewhere just waiting for something. Because on plays like that, when everyone's coming after you, you dump it out and you let the guy go. And at that point you're saying, hey, listen, I trust you enough to beat that guy over you one-on-one. I'm going to give you the ball right now, and I believe in you to do whatever you got to do. Like, just throw a smoke. Do something. I don't know. Get crazy.
Yeah. Are you firing someone this week?
Can I fire the Commanders offensive line coach? Maybe the whole line. Would they give up 9 sacks? Almost went double digits this week. And dude, we're breaking records this year with O-line. I mean, it's just bad all around.
Why is it? I mean, you would know more than anyone else working with young kids. Is it because they're all just in different offenses in college and you come to the NFL and it's just a steep learning curve? Why is it so bad?
I think it's that. And also, too, because there's just not enough live reps. There's only one way to get better at O-line, and that's live reps. You got to get out there because it's a timing issue. And you see all these twists and all these stunts are getting home, and these quarterbacks are just getting pummeled every which way. And people are like, well, what's the problem? The problem is your offensive line isn't blocking enough, or your run game isn't threatening enough. You're not doing enough play action. Like, there's so many answers to this. But at the end of the day, when you talk about these offensive lines giving up 9 sacks in a game, that's insane. That's like every third down that the Vikings just had, they gave up a sack. You'd be like, dude, what the hell just happened? Somebody gonna stop somebody at some point? Just trip them. Just trip the dude. That's what I'd have been saying. Hey, just fall over and trip them. Okay, Jesus.
This is Jerry. We need to find a name at least for the guy we're firing here. Aggressive. Let's see. Washington Commanders offensive line coach. That's what I want to put a name to it. Is it John Matsko?
Oh, that sounds about right. That sounds like a Matsko line.
John Matsko? Okay.
Great stories.
Yeah, 30 years in the NFL. He went to Kent State. This is his 31st year in the National Football League. His third as the offensive line coach in Washington. Wow, look at this. I feel like this NFL coaches, these guys, so his career includes, he was with Carolina for 8 years, which is about as long as you're ever going to be a position coach somewhere. Dude. Baltimore for 3, Kansas City for 2. He's got a family, okay? Rams for 5. Oh, he was on the Greatest Show on Turf Rams coaching staff in 1999.
Yeah, he was.
With Dick Vermeil and Mike Martz. And then he was with the Giants, Saints. And then the Phoenix Cardinals in the early 1990s, man.
But I mean, 9 sacks. Mackey, what would you be saying if they gave up 9 sacks?
Yeah, I think I'd be calling for heads. Absolutely.
For heads.
Yeah.
I think the quarterback.
I'd be calling for family too. I want him fired, and I don't know what his brother-in-law does, but that guy should be fired too.
How about Carson Wentz did the best he could? It's not all the O-line's fault. It's not all their.
That's my favorite. Have you heard there's an Andrew Luck 6-part documentary on the Athletic football show? It's incredible.
No, I love him.
And he just hey guys. He sounds like the Cookie Monster.
He does.
And it was kind of an examination of his career and what happened and like the peak of it, but then why he retired and stuff. And there's a part in this podcast where they're playing clips of him. There was a game where he literally had broken ribs that punctured his spleen or something and had to go get emergency surgery. And he was up at the press conference, kind of hunched over, and he couldn't really talk, so he was kind of talking like this. And the whole time, so they're asking him basically, dude, your offensive line's getting you killed this year. Yeah. And his answers were like, I just gotta play better. I just need.
I think
there's a rib sticking through his shirt. It's on me. It's on me.
Your appendix is burst. You're like, I'm okay. Hey, he was tough, dude. He took so many hits. I was never so ashamed of a fan base. Remember when they booed him?
Yes.
Dude, I was never so ashamed of a fan base when they booed him. That guy took such a beating and just always had a smile on his face. You ever see him mic'd up? Like, great hit, great sack.
Yes.
You used to hate the quarterbacks that say stuff like that because it just almost give that guy a little bit of energy, but at the same time, that was his natural personality. So you're like, gosh, I gotta love this guy.
See, I would feel like it would soften the defense a little bit. Like, oh, he's a nice guy. I gotta
soften the defense.
I can't destroy him.
We think he goes back there like those guys are really nice.
Super nice guys.
We should take it easy on them the rest of the day. You know what, guys? No more blitzing.
But he's one of those. One of the things I love about him too is he's the accountability guy. He will go up, he'll own everything at the podium, even if it's clearly not his fault. Yeah. I think there is a line there at some point where it's like, okay, it's clearly not your fault. It's okay. But Kevin O'Connell has a little bit of that too. I don't know if you've caught any of the media stuff, but like he'll go up there after games and he will just say, yeah, I need to do a better job. It's on me to, he won't throw Justin Jefferson under the bus for not getting open. He'll say it's on me to scheme him open. I don't know. I feel like some other coaches in recent Vikings history were more about throwing other people under the bus. But like when a coach gets up there and does that to the media, does that matter in a locker room? Does it trickle around like, oh yeah, he's got our backs? He'll light us up in the film room the next day, but he's got our backs.
Yeah. For sure. As long as you to the media, you're like, listen, dude, we got it. We're good. You're not throwing anybody in the bus. And that, don't get me wrong, I joke about it sometimes. Like the quarterbacks are super political, and like nowadays you could just never get any of them to step out of line unless they're on the football field. But for the most part, it's kind of a respect thing because you don't want to call somebody out. You don't want to be like, hey, so-and-so's not doing his job, because it's just going to put him under a spotlight. And then all of a sudden the people on the team see it and they're kind of like, dude, what are you doing? Like we don't do that to each other. We don't trash each other. Now, when that door closes on Monday afternoon around 11 o'clock, it could be as violent as anybody wants. But when that door opens again, it better be smiling faces. Like, hey, we got to figure it out. We're gonna be better. We're gonna get it fixed. You hear it.
I think too. So there was a great little 2-minute video clip of Kevin O'Connell after that Lions win, just giving the pep talk of we're going to take this energy and this swag over to London next week. We got a lot of stuff to work on, but it was like 90%. Hey, we're a badass team. We got that victory, et cetera, et cetera. And you know that when they sit down to watch film in the next day or two, there's so many things to clean up. So I'm sure it's just going to be a bloodbath in the film room. But isn't there something to be said about the way he approached it, and other coaches too, where in this moment, everyone should feel great about winning. And so let's not steal that joy from them in this locker. Let's make it feel good in the But has anyone ever lit you up after a win and not preserved that feeling? Okay. Because I would think that would drive me nuts as a player.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There was an old saying that like a win forgives all sins. So you'd come in, like say you gave up a sack, but you won. At times they'd be like, hey, this is stupid, right? It's not going to happen again. You'd be like, not going to happen again. Got it. But there'd be some games where you would, in the moment, everyone's excited. And then as you fly home, you're watching the game on the plane and you're like, oh no, I thought I looked so much better than this. Dude, are you serious? That's me out there? Oh my God. And they come in the next day and they just light you up. Like, yeah, the Dubs are great and it's hard to win in this league. And it is hard to win in the NFL. But at the same time, you got to continue to get better. And they'll cuss you out after a win. They'll cuss you out after a loss. If you're not getting better progressively every week, or you're not installing more of the offense, or the offense isn't developing more and more, yeah, you're going to get it. Because I think it's a lot of like the way the game is. It's so intense that we don't think they're serious until they're just dog cussing you. And then they're like, all right, listen, I think he's serious now.
Yeah, now he's, yeah.
Okay, right? Like, because at times they'll say things and you're like, I don't know. Does he really want me to do it like that? He kind of gave me like the question part of it. Like, I don't know. And then sometimes they'll just straight cuss you out. And why didn't you? And all right. Yep. I'll do it like that next time. Got you. My fault. Totally didn't think you were
one. I can't remember what team it was, but there was a defensive lineman, I think, that almost punched his position coach on Sunday.
Did you see that? That was the Jets. It was Quinnen Williams going nuts. They were playing the Bengals.
I'd love to know what was the likely interaction there. Like, what would piss him off? What would a coach have said in that situation?
He probably
this is reckless speculation here, but
reckless speculation. If I had to guess, he probably told him he wasn't playing hard enough. I mean, listen, it's a very emotional game. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've had coaches that during the week were some of the hardest people to get along with. Like, you just couldn't stand them. But then on a game day, they were like the calmest people because they knew how it was. Like, they knew how the interactions were, no matter how bad it was, come out the field and it was like, hey man, we're good. And I was like, wow, this is great. Like, you don't feel the stress of everybody looking at you. You just feel like, all right, yeah, we can fix that. We're good there. But then I'd have some coaches that like, they were tough all week. And then in the game, they just got on you. And you're like, dude, you just feel this immense pressure of like, God, we got to get it fixed right now. Who's the problem? Is it you? Is it me? Is it him? What's going on? Instead of everyone just being like, hey, listen, this is the issue. We're not sliding over enough. We're turning too much when we set. We're not getting the mic when we pull around on power, like something like, and you're like, all right, yeah, you're right. That sounds so simple. And then you get the coach that's out there just losing his mind. And you're like, you're right. It's going to take a miracle to fix this. And really, it's just like, we're not blocking the nose tackle well enough. You know what I'm saying? You just go back on Monday and you're like, let's get freaked out about that. Jesus Christ.
I'm not panicking. You're panicking. Everybody calm down, for God's sake.
Everybody calm down. No, the worst is like when the quarterbacks will come over and they're like, all right, we're okay. You're like, all right, it's not good, because then somebody else is going to follow them. Then the running backs come over. Hey, guys, we're good. Like, is they telling us we're good, or are they trying to convince themselves we're good? Yeah, we know we're good. All right, calm down. And then the receivers come over and they're getting antsy because they're not getting the ball. And then the tight ends, they're the worst because they come over, they can't block, and they're mad because no one's throwing them the ball, right? And then they're yelling at us because we're not doing something apparently, but really it's them the whole time. I'm telling you, the tight end is a conspiracy to ruin the offense. Look at Irv Smith. Tell me I'm wrong right now. That Philly catch, take that number away from him right now,
here, man. He dropped another pass.
And he was over there like, where's the flag? Dude, it hit your hand. I saw it. It bam, bounced right off. He's like, where's my flag? Dude, conspiracy. See,
I think you're onto something, because like tight ends, generally speaking, they're not that great at blocking. You can't leave them on an island with a defensive end or anything. They're just there to kind of double team people. And then most of them aren't great at catching passes either. Yeah.
Let me tell you something. When you're doing a play action and you're the guard and they tell you the tackle's with you, but then all of a sudden he's got to get back out because, you can't leave the tight end out there. You're like, dude, what am I, chopped liver? And they're like, dude, it's a tight end. You want him blocking? Isn't that his job?
What's he out there for? Put another tackle out there.
I'm confused. Wasn't that half of his job to block that guy? No, it was just okay. No, they just get in the way. And the funny thing is, like, the tackle will get out there and he'll just physically push the tight end out of the way. Like, get the hell out of my way. And if you heard what half of them said to those tight ends, oh, it's hilarious. Hilarious.
Well, I would think it would be insulting if I'm an offensive tackle and there's a tight end that's lined up next to me specifically to help me because the coaches think I can't do this job. No. I would be offended.
No. I'm saying, like, this is in order to block the play action. Like, say you're doing a weak zone away, like the Vikings do. They do it all the time. Like, you just throw that ball to Dalvin, 3 dudes step up. Well, you need the tight end initially to hit the defensive end, but they tell you as a guard, if that linebacker doesn't come back right now, like if he doesn't come downhill right now and take that A gap, then you have to get out to the 3 technique because the tackle's got to get back out to the tight end. So you're all moving to the left just to get back out to the right. Sometimes it's just a pain in the ass, man. Like, just one time. Can you just block a guy one time?
Just do your job. Just do your job.
I do. I love them.
People can always submit dumb questions about football from a week-to-week basis on the Score North app. There's a feedback tab. Just send them to me, and I will collect all of our dumb questions about football. And Professor Alex Boone will answer them in depth here, or laugh at them, whatever he wants to do. And this question comes in from a guy named Bart Trench.
Football.
He
That's
says,
a lie. That's a lie,
Phil,
dude.
That's right. My name is Bart Trench. So for your next episode of Trenches with Boone, can you please talk about how teams miss on certain offensive linemen? He uses Bradbury in this as an example. Bradbury's off to a pretty good start this year. But the rest of this is more general here. Seems like you draft someone in the first round who might be a quality, smart player. How do you miss on these types of guys? And he's referencing, in Bradbury's case, strength, leverage techniques, etc., that just haven't translated. But in general, how easy is it to develop some of these traits if you're an offensive lineman? Or I guess the way that I would phrase it is, when a team thinks, yeah, that is a first-round blue-chip talent right there, with anyone, whether it's Bradbury or a tackle or a guard, and you whiff and that player just doesn't become a regular starter for you anymore, what do they usually miss on? What is the thing that, okay, that guy's 300 plus pounds, his combine numbers were off the charts, and he played well in college, but it just didn't translate to the NFL. What usually is the problem?
I think it's one of two things. Number one, it's their knowledge of the game. Like, college ball is not really it's not football. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's times where they just get out there and everyone's looking at the sideline. It's a green color. I come back. Oh, colors changed to red. I know what play that is. Like, that's not football. You know what I'm saying? When you get to the NFL, they call play. You get up to the line. The only thing I'm looking at is, what is my defense doing? And I think that's the biggest problem that these guys have, is they get up there and they're like, what am I looking at? And you're like, the defense, dumbass. What do you think you're looking at? Too high, we're going to run it. One high, we're going to throw it. We all know that. Over, we're going to run this play. Under, we run this play. But they just don't understand that. And I think it's not so much, I don't want to say it's a miss. I just want to say that when you take it, going from college to pros was the biggest step you're going to take. When you go from high school to college, yeah, it's a big step. You're like, man, these are some big dudes. But when you go from being a 21-year-old to playing with a 35-year-old, you're like, okay, this is a huge step. This guy is clearly really good at what he does. And I think that when teams draft you, they say, hey, listen, this guy's got great feet. He's got great hands. He's got great recognition of what's going on around him. He has the ability to move people. He can sit in his stance. He can get, he's fluid while he's kicking. But they expect you to take these steps every single year. Now, I'm not going to name names, but I'm going to say there are some shitty coaches in the NFL. That's just the half of it. I don't know what to tell you. And I think that when you have these players and they're listening to some of these things that these coaches are telling them, and these coaches are like, you got to do this. And at times, a lot of these kids are just so gifted that it's almost like, get out of their way. Just tell them, hey, listen, man, you need to get bigger. You see that nose tackle that's in our division that's 380 pounds? Yeah, that's going to be your guy twice a year for sure. So you should probably get hit for around 320 to meet him somewhere in the middle. You know what I'm saying? Like, they expect you to continue developing, understanding, learning. I think a little bit of it falls on the player because it's your job every year to go out there and get better. And if you're not getting better, you're getting worse because somebody is always getting better. Think about this. Aaron Donald probably works out 6 days a week, right? We've seen some of his workouts where he's playing with the knife and he's like, oh, it's not a real knife. Yeah, that was a real knife. You think he's an idiot? He's out there like, dude, listen, if I'm going to be fast, I better play with something for real. Like, you have to meet his intensity every day if you want to consider that a win. For an offensive lineman, like, you have to go out and say, hey, listen, Aaron Donald's working this hard. J.J. Watt's working this hard. T.J. Watt's working this hard. Whoever is working this hard, I have to meet them at this level every single day. And if I don't, when I go out there and play Kenny Clark, if I haven't worked as hard as him, how am I expected to go out and beat his ass? You're not. And then these guys come out here and they're like, well, I don't know what happened, coach. Well, you're getting thrown around, or you're not listening. You're not developing. You're not paying attention. You're not understanding defenses. You're not going out there and saying, hey, listen, I'm not good at this. I should probably work on this because this is a lot of what football is. Or, hey, I'm really good at this, so I don't have to worry about this, but I should focus more on my hands or my feet or my stance or whatever it is where I'm looking defense. They just don't do that as much anymore. I don't think it's as much a hit on the team because I think the team sees these players and they're like, well, he'll grow, right? He'll get bigger. He'll get stronger. He'll develop. He'll understand that defense. We don't expect him to come in here and be Peyton Manning right away, but we expect within year 3, you should be able to kill a play. You should be able to understand why the safeties are doing what they're doing. You should be able to look at a defense and tell us everything about it just by looking at a picture. And if you can't, does that really fall on the team as much as it does the player? Like, at some point, the player has to kind of take a little bit of like, hey, maybe I didn't go as hard as I should have. Because I think before I was really harsh on teams, and then you see what guys do in the offseason, and you're like, well, maybe it's not so much the team. Maybe some people just aren't as driven as they once were. Maybe some guy hit his second contract, and he's like, hey, man, I'm good. This is it. This is it for me. It was a weird experience seeing guys say, I just want to play 8 years. Because I had always been like, I just want to play forever. Never want to stop. And the guys were like, I'm good after 8. I was like, you have a serious number set in your head? They're like, yeah, once I hit 8, I'm done. And they did. I was like, wow.
See, that might be another dumb question about football topic for later in the season, because so many like the fans who watch this show, for instance, you think, man, be a blast if I was 6'3" and I could beef up to 300 pounds, like make a bunch of money in the league. But there's got to be just a high percentage of players that were born into a crazy set of DNA, right? Like their body, I mean, I'll use one name because I think it's fairly well publicized, and I covered him like 15 years ago. Bryant McKinney was one of the crazy, most talented offensive tackles
ever.
And it was not that he didn't put in any work, but like, I think he loved being a football player, but wasn't maybe as hyper obsessive about the work. And because he was so naturally talented, he was a multi-time Pro Bowler.
Yeah.
But what must it be like if you have every step of the way in your life, you're just really good at this thing and you make a lot of money, but it's more of a job for you than it is a love. And there's probably a lot of players that feel that way, especially after an injury or a teammate goes down or something, and you can't compartmentalize it. I mean, but you can make millions of dollars and change your life if you just stick it out, right?
Yeah, and I think that a lot of the guys that started putting numbers on it was more like, listen, once I'm done with this contract, I'm done. And it's like you said, they're beat up, right? And then all of a sudden concussions became a huge deal, especially after this last week with old boy down in Miami.
So
Boy,
they're saying that it wasn't a concussion, that it's he aggravated his back.
I mean, that's a big stretch. Like you're going from your brain to your back quickly. And when you listen to guys talk, I think a lot of it was like, hey man, I've hit a road where I don't really feel good about myself anymore. And I'm cool after this number or whatever. And it's just crazy. But at the same time, a lot of those guys I feel like I played with a ton of guys that their careers ended earlier because they didn't work as hard as they could have. And that falls, like I said, it falls on the player. Eventually, the team expects you to be a pro. They expect you to be a man and show up every day, do your job. Don't bitch to us. We don't care. Dude, we don't care about anything. Like that's what they would say to you. Hey, I'm really sore. I don't care. Yeah. Get out there. Yeah. Okay, here we go. But when you don't and then you show up and how many times have we seen guys, and I'm not going to name any names, but they have to put a weight clause, right? Or maybe they have to put a clause in your contract about how much film you watch, right? Like I'm just saying, the league will openly show you things and they'll dig a player real quick and then they'll kind of pull back and be like, maybe we shouldn't have done that. But I feel like it's a little bit to show behind the curtain. Like, hey, listen, if things go sideways, it was because of this. There you go. There's a little show.
That film clause thing, and they eventually took it out. But
how can you take it out now, though? Like it's already in there. They went to him like, dude, we're watching every week how much you're watching.
I also don't, if it gets to that point between, let's just say a head coach and a player or an organization and a player where you have to make it known publicly that this is the thing that's going to be in this contract. I don't know how you come back from that.
You don't.
And I think you're kind of seeing it on the field at the start of the season here. It just doesn't look right. Everyone's full of angst. I don't know how you come. Hey, I don't think you work hard enough. Oh, you don't? Screw you. And that was after they argued about whether he was going to get a contract at all for 6 or 7 months or whatever it was.
I mean, I don't blame them. If that was in the back of their mind, they were probably. I don't think the Cardinals should have paid him at all. He's clearly done nothing to deserve that money. And then when you stop and you take a look at what's actually in the contract and they're like, hey, for real though, if we're giving you this money, you actually have to play the quarterback position. You actually have to do it. It makes you wonder, why would you pay him? Why not call his bluff? You know what, dude? Don't come. You haven't done anything anyways. We'll find somebody else.
Dude, who's the first team? This is what happens. There's no, in the NFL, there's quarterbacks that get paid the most amount of money. Every year there's a new record-setting contract.
Right. Yeah.
There needs to be a middle class of, all right, you're a really good player, but you like to play video games on the weekend too much, and you're not really studying film, and so we want you around, but we can't give you the same amount of money that the top guys are making because then we can't bring in players to make up for your flaws.
Right.
So who's going to be the first team? The Cowboys had a chance. Maybe Dak was the guy.
No, they love Dak too much down there. I think
because you might have to draw lines at some point and say, you know what? We're not going to thanks for the 4 or 5 years, but we're not going to give you $40 million a year if you're not going to be the leader of this franchise.
I'm just trying to think of a team right now that could actually pull that off.
Well, the Ravens haven't signed Lamar Jackson. I would sign Lamar Jackson.
Happen. Yeah, you're not going to do that to him. It just the problem becomes, and I thought for sure Arizona was going to be the team they were going to be like, nah, dude, we're not paying you. It's not even going to happen because you haven't done anything for us. There's nothing to pay you on. What are we giving you money for? And then when he said he wasn't going to show up, I would have been like, fine, don't show up. We'll see how this looks. And if you do decide not to show up, we're going to let everybody know why we're not paying you. Eventually somebody's going to have to step up for themselves and be like, listen, dude, you're just not worth the money. And if you don't come, we're going to tell everybody why.
Yeah, it's so tough because there's only 15 or 20 guys who play quarterback at a high level, and there's 32 teams, and the other third, 12 teams, the other third of the league are constantly searching.
Right.
But I'd rather have, the Eagles kind of admitted their mistake on Carson Wentz. They said, you know what, he's banged up, he's just not the leader we thought he was behind the scenes. Right. That was their opinion of him. Now I think they had already inked him to a contract, and so they had to move it and give up picks, but they decided we'd rather have we'd rather take a chance on a second round Jalen Hurts, even though he might not be as good right now. But he only makes, getting back into the GM mode, but he only makes like a fraction of the money, and we can then beef up the roster with a great receiver over here, an offensive lineman over there, a defensive player over here. We can make a trade for a cornerback or whatever it is. So, yeah, like I'm with you. I don't know that I would have given that money to Kyler Murray.
No chance. No way. I'll be even more honest. I wouldn't have given that money to Deshaun Watson either.
Yeah, well, my God.
Right? That's a whole nother can of worms to open up. It's just, what are you doing? Like, that just sets a terrible precedent. It does.
I wonder, too, if they thought, and we can maybe go deeper on this later in the season, but if they thought, well, we'll just, we'll do it, and, this will all just kind of blow over, and it'll be fine. It's like, no, that's not going to blow over.
I don't know if that's how it works. I just want to know how he's going to be when he comes in. I mean, you haven't played in a long time. And we just talked about how important that is to be out there, especially at a quarterback with the timing and receiver and understanding people coming after you. I mean, I don't think that's going to be tough. But, yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, dude, it's only week 3, and I feel like so much has already happened.
It is. It's
Kansas
crazy.
City lost. It's insane. The Bills lost. What is going on? Did you see Ken Dorsey throwing?
Yes.
I wish he would have just taken it and thrown it out a window. Like him stomping, it wasn't as funny as just taking it and slamming it out the window.
What's hilarious is, so the NFL sent a strongly worded memo to all 32 teams about not breaking the league-issued tablets anymore. Like Tom Brady broke 2 of them last week. Rodgers threw one. And then the league said, guys, 32 teams, we can't have you punishing these tablets anymore. Microsoft pays a lot of money for the sponsorships. So if you do it, you're going to get in trouble. And then this dude, Ken Dorsey, just takes a sledgehammer to
try to punch it. You know what they need to do? Microsoft needs to come out with an unbreakable one so that when Tom Brady throws it, they just give it right back to him.
Yeah, it boomerangs back. It's great.
That would be awesome.
All right, if you guys have dumb football questions you want us to broach on the show, just hit me up through the Score North app. There's a feedback tab, and we'll mix them in throughout the rest of the season here. So, all right, a good dive into the trenches there. Good stuff here tonight.
I know, that was fun.
Football.
Yeah.
On to London, baby. The Saints.
On to London.